I don't usually review big cases, but man, this one was really exciting to build up, and it just gave me all sorts of warm, fuzzy, tan and brown vibes. Welcome to Machines More. This is the Antec Flux Pro Noctua edition. In this review, I will share about this very elegant case, my experience with it, and why it's definitely one to consider if you enjoy all things Noctua. Quick disclaimer, Noctua sent by the test sample, a big thanks to them, but this review is not paid for by them, and they don't have control over my content creation or the test process, and they're going to hear this feedback at the same time that you do. Real quick, on this channel, I cover a variety of PC building topics, so please make sure to give a like and sub to the channel because it really helps. Big thanks. All right, Antec's Flux Pro is a very well-ventilated and generally well-regarded full ATX tower chassis. It's measuring 245 millimeters wide, 545 millimeters tall, and 530 millimeters deep. Now, in this dimensional category, I think users typically are less concerned about the actual volume, but this does work out to be roughly 71 liters for reference. The case features an open mesh front panel with a walnut frame, and behind this panel is where 340 millimeter fans can be mounted. You can also fit a 420 here, and the same goes for the top. At the back, you can do up to a 140 millimeter fan, and at the bottom of the main section over the PSU area, you can have up to 320 millimeter fans. Noting that there's going to be a power supply under there, you can kind of shift it around where you want. So usually at least one of those fans are going to be obstructed. This mesh cover lifts up and you can reveal the power supply in the bottom cabling area. There's room for a pair of HDDs if you wish. And there's a dust filter here at the bottom. And behind the motherboard is a hidden cable management area that features plenty of channels to route things. You have two more HDD cages and two 2.5-inch mounting locations behind the motherboard if you like. And there's going to be a fan hub with the pre-routed extension cables attached. So all you have to do to set up the fans is to connect up the fans to those extensions. The top panel has a Type-C 10 gig port, two Type-A 3.0 headers, headphone and mic jack, and the power and reset button. There's also a little screen right here that will display the CPU and GPU temp provided that you use Antec's iUnity utility. So what does this Noctua version add? Well, for the case itself, it's really what you might consider a skin pack instead of any mechanical difference. The lower panel here and the top panel, it's painted Noctua dark brown, as is the bottom fan tray and the glass panel and the front mesh panel. There's a little Noctua branding. If you're going for a themed build, this is pretty unique as you typically won't find cases coming in this color. It can be, polarizing. Next up, probably the more significant feature is the case fans. The regular Antec version of the case does come with fans, but this one upgrades to one of the best PC fans on the market. You get 440 millimeter NF-A14 G2s. These are the SX2PP versions, so they are RPM offset to minimize the beat frequencies. You get two A fans and two B fans. What you put at the back doesn't really matter. Just make sure you do the front as ABA or BAB if you might be sensitive to that. Now, I actually forgot when I set this up initially, so I went back and I fixed it afterwards. So do pay attention to that. You also get 220 millimeter NF-A12 G2s in an A-B configuration. You're of course free to configure the fans however you like, but I would recommend installing the front fans as intakes, the rear fan as an exhaust, and the bottom fans would follow the direction of the GPU fans. And even though it's not intaking from outside the case, it's still going to intake indirectly through the bottom section since it is ventilated here. So make sure you point the airflow at the GPU fans for an intake. At current pricing, each A14 G2 SX2 PP set runs $85 in the US and the A12 set is $65. So all these fans would run $235 altogether. Other details, the regular Flux Pro has a fan hub, but the Noctua version uses the Noctua NA FH1. It's nice and magnetic, and you can shift it around super easily. And all those pre-routed extensions are Noctua branded cables. Finally, you get this cute little Noctua fan keychain as a souvenir. And this is a must-have for a true connoisseur, right? Building in this case was a lot of fun, actually. There's just something about putting a ton of Noctua fans in a case And of course, you do have 190 millimeters of cooler clearance if you wanted to use a big tower cooler like the D15G2, which I suspect many of you will be doing. But here I wanted to show you something a little different, maximize the fan potential of the case. And I opted to do a liquid-cooled build with a 420. I started out with Be Quiet Silent Loop 3, which already has very good fans, but I had to, right? So I swapped out for 3 additional A14 G2s installed as top exhausts. The board here is ASUS's X870E Crosshair Hero, and I am running the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 3D. The Noctua 5080 that I reviewed last year would of course have been perfect in this case, but I don't have it on hand anymore. And actually the ProArt 5070 Ti here from ASUS looks great with the dark wood trim, and the gold tones actually match up very nicely with the rest of the build, as I found out. Finally, for the power supply, I also had to do that. This is the Noctua version of the Seasonic Prime TX 1600, great for this themed build. The power supply section does have an internal connector if you want to turn a smaller ATX PSU in different orientations, but because of how long this one is, it has to go at the back directly. So I swapped in the separate cover that you can use. Overall, I found the case very easy to build in. I love that the fan extensions are pre-routed, which made installing the fans very easy. I used fan screws here at the front for the fans, but I also chose to use anti-vibration mounts that the case comes with for the back and bottom fans, just to see how well they worked out, and they worked out fine. They do have, the nubbin sticking out, that's how that works. Cable management with this case is great. It's very easy to route things. So one thing I would have appreciated would have been another cutout for the middle fan on the front tray. It worked to get the cable through, but it was a little bit more work getting it through the top hole to connect up to the extension cable. Performance with this many high quality fans and this huge radiator has to be excellent, right? And I suspect that many users are going to go for this type of build and leaning towards the noise optimized end of the performance spectrum. That's how I set up here. CPU temps here are what I would consider already very good for the 9950X 3D running at 200 watts here. The kicker here is I customized the fan curve, and these fans are running at 630 RPM, which basically means that you don't hear any ramp up when the CPU is loaded. In fact, they're running at the identical RPM to the other 140 millimeter case fans. That's just how good this is. So I wanted to give you an idea of what the system sounds like when the fans are running at the 600 RPM or so that I set this to max out at. And like I said, that temp, that metric there was at this fan level, and it's extremely low RPM, and it's very well composed. The noise is not, it's a rather transparent case. So I'm right next to it, I can hear it, but it's not offensive because it's just these fans are such high quality noise optimized fans. So I'll be quiet and let you listen. So yeah, this would be an excellent noise optimized setup. For gaming, they're still mostly at the same fan RPMs. The temps are fine. GPU temps is very good. Now you're going to hear the GPU at 1550 or so RPM because the noise floor is so low for the rest of the case. But 1550 RPM on this ProArt cooler is still pretty quiet. Now the noise performance here is great because the ventilation of the case is excellent. The fans and the components are top notch, and other than the tempered glass panel blocking the sound, there's not actually any sound dampening or acoustic foam inserts or anything like that. It is just a metal shell pretty much, and so it might be nice to see some acoustic dampening in a future iteration of this. Otherwise, like I said, it's just really a skin pack here. So the value of the package, this case at first glance, you're like, oh, it's selling for $400 US, which seems pretty steep versus the regular Antec Flux Pro, which goes for about $180. But recall, the case includes $235 worth of Noctua fans if you were to purchase those separately. And of course, the regular version of the case also includes 6 what you might call generic fans that are swapped out for these, so you do have to discount some of that value there. But if you're going to upgrade those fans anyway, you probably don't have much use for those generic models, right? So in a way, this would cost you less altogether if that's what you were going for, right? If you were trying to build a high-end airflow Noctua enthusiast build, and you don't have these fans already and you need to go out and get these, this almost makes more sense since you get the customized color scheme as well. And I can definitely see the value proposition here, but I do realize that this is a smaller and very specific subset of users that this is intended for. So the Flux Pro also has a white version, and I was thinking, man, this build would also look really good in a white case also. So hey, you know, maybe a light Noctua version in the future. That will do it for this overview. It's an excellent case. It's an option for a specific build list, but I think Noctua lovers and you want a big tower case like this, and this is gonna hit the spot. So make sure to give a like, subscribe. The links are down below, and huge thanks for watching today.